Well, basically, African countries, many of them, as you know, fall within the least developed countries category, very poor countries. So, of course, they would also want to see big players like the US, China, India, or other major emitters announce ambitious carbon cuts. But based on what I spoke to leaders of these countries, African countries, what they say is for them, the most important thing is climate finance, money. They need money to fight off the inevitable impacts of climate change, because scientists have told us that so much of carbon has already been dumped into the atmosphere that there will be some changes, and African countries need the money to adapt to those changes, and that's where money comes in.
Oh, we'll talk about money in a moment, but we heard there from Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, who talked about climate resilience, and he was hoping that developing countries are not left behind. What did he mean by that?
So that is where actually the money thing comes in. So resilience means you need to adapt to those changes. You need to be resilient, whether it's storms, hurricanes, cyclones, or any other things like droughts. You need to have the capacity to cope with it, to minimize the damages. And if you remember, President Ramaphosa also talked about it's very difficult to access money, and on the top of that, these countries, poor countries, African countries, are now getting more of loan, and he was stressing on grant. And he also reminded that developed countries have the responsibility because it was them who have done so much of carbon into the atmosphere, and because of them, this is all happening. So therefore, these countries need support to adapt to that, and that is where the issue of resilience. But of course, developed countries have their own arguments, what they talk about.
Exactly, and that's why I'm coming to the next question. Have African countries themselves made any climate promises this time?
Well, they are talking about, for example, South Africa talked about its own, what is called is nationally determined contribution. Basically, it's a plan, what you show to the UNFCCC, the convention, that what are you doing to help the world meet the Paris climate target of limiting global average temperature rise to well below 2 degrees and to strive for 1.5. So yes, African countries are preparing, are submitting their NDCs, their climate plans as well, and then switching over, at least they are saying, but the question is, will they actually be able to do it, do what they say? And on the top of that, the challenge of adaptation is their agenda. That's what they keep on telling me.
All right, Navin Singh Khadka, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed on that first day of the summit there.